Well, hello again, and I hope you've had a wonderful week. Last week we talked about what's in your cup, and today we want to talk about the how-to of suffering. Now, that doesn't excite you very much, but you know, we all take our turn sometime. My soul. You know that he had just lost his wife, and it was either 4 or 5 children. I think it was 5. And right in the middle of the ocean on the way over there, there was a big storm, and they all died. And so he was a wonderful, godly man, and he went right to the point. And he asked for time, and he went out there. And while he was out there, he prayed and said, God, it is well with my soul. And he wrote that. And we're still singing it, and it still ministers to us. So there's always a reason when something endures so long. And so, anyway, I just want to read you a few things today I think you might enjoy. And these are the responses. I've been wanting to do this for a little while. This comes from a couple that live on a boat. That's the truth. They come in periodically, get a place for a little while, but they're right back on it, and they were going up and down the east, mostly up the east coast, and they were going all the way to the Chesapeake Bay. So anyway, she wrote and said, I am responding to your recent message. And he said, you have touched my heart and ministered to me in a way that he said many other servants failed to do. So that blessed my heart, and I just feel like I'm going up and down the Chesapeake Bay, so or the Eastern Seaboard. Here was another one. It said, Ruth Ann, a powerful anointed message. Okay, here's another one. It says this message was so powerful that, let's see, I will listen to it over and over to renew my faith. Isn't it good? Makes me feel good. Here's another one, and this comes from a missionary in Jamaica. And he said, so interesting. I pray that we will have discernment in this Morionic age. It must have been something along that line anyway. And here's another one that says, oh my goodness, you are writing of my own heart stirring. This man, you know where his parish is? Walmart. And let's see, Sam's. He goes out there and says, I can't wait to get out there and win some souls. Wonderful. Here's another one. This is amazing. I have shared your messages with our men in their Bible study, and they love it. So you be blessed. I am blessed. Anyway, that was good. That came from Louisville. All right, it said, Then you will always be my spiritual mother. And he said, I think I'm beginning to understand that how we would do greater things that even Jesus did. And he said, because he that is in me is greater than he that is in the world. And that was the one we had on timidity is not a grace. And so she referred to that. She says, why, when you say that, greater is he that is in the world, that he that is in me that is in the world, there's no timidity in that. Our vision is so limited to what God has done and what he is doing. So anyway, thought you might enjoy just hearing this, and I would love to hear from you. So, all right, the hours, or the how-to of suffering. That sounds like you're going to hand out a bunch of recipes, doesn't it? Maybe it's not quite that easy. And sometimes you don't learn until you're in the crucible. And you know, when you are, you go to Christ. And it's affliction usually that makes us go there. It was David who said, before I was afflicted, I went astray. So anyway, let's look at this. Without valleys, there can be no mountains. We love a mountaintop. Because we dig in the valleys. We plant crops in the valleys. We collect bountiful rain that flows from the upper mountains. And the streams fill up and eventually pace their way to the oceans. Yes, the streams are in the valleys. But in our valleys, we don't see very far. And it's easy to lose the big picture because our vision is limited to just the immediate world to which we belong. Now, of course, in the mountain, we can look afar, but usually there's no way to get there. Now, these are advanced souls. There are advanced souls. And one of them I love to read after, and his name was Brother Lawrence. And he was a monk. And he was an incredible example of great joy and piety. And they all knew that. And so he was appointed because of his joy and his anointing and his piety to serve the Holy Communion to the rest of the monks. Well, that was a very prestigious job. We would call that the mountaintop. But one day, he got a different appointment. Guess what it was? Go down and serve in the kitchen. The very monks that he had been serving, now he's serving them food. And they're up there in his position. Well, he started serving. He was no different up there than he was down here in the kitchen. In fact, he said, I was happier. And he said, as I put up the food and the clang of the pans, and he said, I had that, he said, I had the pans and the people that have just ferocious appetites and all this, he said, and the schedules that just had to be on time and so forth. He said, I had so much joy. And he said that the people began to observe it. I said, can you believe Brother Lawrence? He's happier here than he was up there. And they began to write books about him. I've got one in my library. And you know, when you learn how to serve in the valleys, people take notice. They see. It's usually what we are in a crisis is who we really are. All right, now, this is, I like this, that rich souls drive the devil crazy. Now, an example of that is Job. Because Job, man, he's the greatest man in the East. And everybody just bowed to Job when he went through the streets. Everybody loved Job, and he was a good man. There wasn't a thing wrong with Job. God said he was a perfect man. So the devil comes along, and he can't make sense out of that, because he says, well, does Job serve you for nothing? And he said, God thought it over. Yes, I think he does. He said, there are some people that serve me because of who I am. Some people do. They serve God for God. I want to be one of those. I don't want him because he's just always feeding me and giving me candy. I want to serve God because he is God, and he deserves my love, my devotion. Well, Job was that kind of man, and so the devil said, well, if you stripped him of a lot of stuff, yeah, you got a hedge about him. God said, won't work. Yeah. He said, I tried, and he tried it. And I tell you, Job, he lost family, he lost his health, he lost friends, he lost dignity, and even the question marks were coming. I go, he said, to the right and try to find him. I go to the left. He couldn't understand what was happening, but he said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. You know who he said that to? His wife. You know, it's too bad when it's in your own home. But she said to him, why don't you just curse God and die? He said, you foolish woman. We took out of the hands of the Lord goodness. Shouldn't we take evil? Who are we serving? Well, I don't know if it did any good, but anyway, he got it all back. I'm jumping to the end of the book. So anyway, before this time, everybody wanted to be like Job. And we really don't know the benefits of the how-to of suffering until you get to the back of the book. And when you get to the back of the book, or the back of the chapter, I guess you're to say, the book of Job anyway, you find out that God said, okay, yep, rolled up his sleeves. He lets those three comforters, you know, sometimes your friends, who needs enemies, yeah, and they just battered him. You know, you probably got sin in your life. You did this, you did that. Well, they weren't any help at all. In fact, they made it worse, and he just wished they'd just go away, but they wouldn't go away. No, they were on their bully pulpit. Strange, isn't it? How some people you expect are going to be your friends when you're in trouble. But you know, they get kind of cruel sometimes because they have their own agendas. And I tell you, religion can be kind of cruel at times. So, anyway, you know, when you got to the back of the book and God spoke up, he said, you know, I am so put out with these three men that had been battering him. He said, they're not going to be healed. They're not going to get out of this unless Job prays for them. And here they've been calling him the devil all this time, and now they can't get loose unless Job prays for them. So Job had no rancor in his heart at all. He prays for them and saw them off, and they went back to their country, wherever they came from. And you know, the Bible says that eye hath not seen, nor ear heard what God has prepared for those who love him. He just believes when he says it, you're going to believe it. And we live then in the bigger picture. If you live here and now, you know, you're going to be bombarded. And there's going to not be many how-tos if we're living with this tunnel vision. But once you get to the back of the book, you say, hey, yeah. That's what Job did. He got to the back of his chapter, And God said, oh, he said, my servant Job. And you know what happened? He turned the favor right around, and everybody began coming to his place. They brought in gifts. They were just loading him with it, and his health came back to his body, and he had another family at that time, and they said that his daughters were the most beautiful in the whole East. Now think of that. Yeah. And let's see. Yeah, he became one of the greatest men in the East because of it. So his stature was known throughout the whole East at that time. Now it's kind of like Revelation, you know, and it's probably not very many's favorite book, because you don't know where you're going to land along that 7 years time. You know, where am I? Where am I? Am I here? Am I gone? Where am I? You have to go to the back of the book. And in the back of the book, Jesus has come. He's brought 10,000s of his saints. He's brought all the saints from early on. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all of those saints. And you know what? He's leading on a white horse, and it's triumphant, and it's written on the side who he is, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, and all of his enemies are under his feet. And then he takes up his rule and his reign. That's what we have to look forward to. So I just encourage you, sing in the kitchen. If you kind of feel like maybe you've been kind of demoted in life, everybody seems to be going on, but you're kind of at a standstill, just start singing in the kitchen. And then too, if you're kind of bogged down and you can't seem to go any farther, just go to the back of the book and you'll find out you're the winner. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Ruth Polston from the Life That Wins.